Today we're very excited to have with us two wonderful graphic novelists, Ben Hatke and Kazu Kibuishi. Ben's here to discuss the fantastic conclusion to his Mighty Jack graphic novels, Mighty Jack and the Goblin King, with Kazu, the writer and artist of the thrilling Amulet graphic novel series. Have you guys read both series? Yes. Wonderful. So just a few words about tonight's authors before we get started. Ben is the author and illustrator of the New York Times best-selling Zita, the Space Girl trilogy, the picture books Julia's House for Lost Creatures and Nobody Likes a Goblin, and the graphic novels Little Robot and Mighty Jack. He lives and works in the Shenandoah Valley with his wife and their boisterous pack of daughters. Kazu is the writer and illustrator of the Amulet graphic novel series, the editor of the Explorer Comics anthology, and the creator of the Copper webcomic at his website, boldcity.com. He also illustrates the covers for the Scholastic 15th Anniversary Edition paperbacks of Harry Potter. The books are all on the cubes behind you, and you can purchase them at any register in the store. We just have a few announcements before we get started. The store will be closing tonight at 8, but we can stay for the duration of the event. If you are purchasing some books, will you please ask that you make all purchases before 8 o'clock since the registers will close then. And if you parked in the back lot, I'd be happy to validate your parking. And now, please join me in welcoming Ben and Kazu.
Never have too many microphones. Is yours go?
No.
Yeah. Like.
Oh yeah, there you go. Now it's on.
Now we have two microphones. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for taking the time to come out and see us tonight. I hope we make it worth your evening. So let's see.
How do you want to do this?
I don't know. I wanted to just kind of talk about our maybe mutual history, because it's funny. It's been an ongoing realization. I think every time I see you, I realize how long that I've actually known you. Somewhere along the line, you went from being Kazu to being my old friend Kazu.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I've known you longer than my wife.
That's a big deal.
And we just celebrated our 10th anniversary.
Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah, I can't say the same, but but it's been a while, and you've been a sort of a big influence on me, actually from the get-go. I owe so much of my comics career to finding you. So much of my comics career feels like it comes from the discovery of the flight message boards, and when you were your Copper comics in particular, you had made a comment really early on. So I was not into the convention scene, the comics convention scene growing up, and so I wandered into comics via the internet, and I had loved comics all my life. I had gone into newspaper comics, both like Little Nemo and the great old newspaper comics, and then Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield. And even when I was 10, I wrote to Jim Davis because I grew up in Indiana, and Jim Davis was from Indiana, and he wrote me back, and that was the first little inkling that this could be a real thing. But I think even in the back of my mind, I never did quite believe that you could write stories and draw comics and actually do this, right? And then I wandered into flight message boards one day, or I found your guys' websites, and I was like, this is what I was looking for. This is that, not just, because I had collected a ton of comics, but there was an aesthetic there that especially came out from Copper and from Keen's Jellyby comics, that I was like, this is what I've been looking for, and these people are doing this. And that's when I wandered in and started saying hello. And you made a comment early on about the Copper comics that you were, I'll probably get it wrong, but in my memory, you were like, I am teaching myself to tell a contained story in a single page or a very confined set of space. in comics, and I was like, I want to do this, and that's why I started doing the Zita the Space Girl webcomic, to give myself similar constraints and to try to do kind of the same thing, learn the same way. So yeah, that's, I feel like how I wandered in.
Yeah, we were both unpublished when we met. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just doing it for fun, really. I mean, it was.
And we'd both done school newspaper comics.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the thing.
And I was following your diary comics from your travels.
Yeah.
House Hatke comics.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So, yeah, and then I think it was Flight 2. That's where I asked you to hop on board.
Yes.
The big comics train that we're on.
Yeah. And in looking back on that first Flight story, it's still, I still get squeamish about it because it's such early kind of raw.
It's so good,
uninformed.
though. The storytelling was great.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most important thing, is that you were comfortable as a writer. And so this is me as editor looking at your comics. I always championed your stuff because of the storytelling. And I always told people that that's what I was looking for. I was looking for some people who had a clear voice, you know.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the most important things. So the art would catch up eventually. A lot of people, not to say that your drawings.
No, it had some catch up. No, that's fine. No, it's cool.
But I mean, I think when people are when they're coming into comic books and things like that, there's a lot of nervousness. I think people are nervous about whether what's successful, what's not successful, what should they publish, what should they not publish. A lot of times they go right to the artwork and kind of judge it based on that. And I think the readers think of it differently. I think especially young readers, they don't.
They want story.
They want a story.
Yeah.
So that was really that was like the criteria to be on Flight, is whether or not you are actually speaking with the work rather than just trying to show us that you can draw. And I think it's different than a lot of the other anthologies. That's for that reason. Yeah.
What a sensible thing. That's cool. So yeah, that was the beginning, and then there were the Flight anthologies. And from Flight, from your experience, because like we were there, and it feels like there was Jeff Smith's Bone series, but then there was sort of this kind of like watershed moment for a particular type of book that we're doing now that maybe didn't exist before in quite the same way. Is that fair to say?
I think it's not even just comics. It was, I was working in architecture when I read Harry Potter.
Okay.
I was actually listening to it in traffic. I would drive an hour and a half to my office.
Okay.
As an architect, as a designer, as a graphic designer for an architecture firm. I remember thinking, oh, fine. It's like I'm a big fan of Roald Dahl.
Yes.
And I was always looking for more children's literature, like with the voice, like
which
Roald
was
Dahl.
Exactly my reaction to that first Harry Potter book when I snuggled up in my bed and I looked at it and I was like, I got that Roald Dahl feeling.
Yeah, I was like, it's back.
That's exactly what I felt like. Yeah, it's like this is that thing that I had when I was little, and it was gone for a while, and now it's coming back. Cool. Wow.
And I thought that we could do that with comics.
I think we can.
Yeah,
we can.
Now, I guess it's working out. All right,
I think it's working.
Yeah.
I do. Cool. Where do we go from here?
I don't know.
What's the next step? I don't want to take you too much down memory lane.
Dance, but we're not dancing, we're not singing.
No, okay.
Though I know you can do both of those things, and I can't.
Well, I actually don't mountain bike as much as you do these days. I wish I did.
I can't do that in front of you.
So let's see. What else? So
should I draw something? Should we draw something for you guys?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you keep talking?
Okay.
And I'll just draw something first, and then we can switch.
Okay. So let me think. So that's how Kazu and I met and started out together. Graphic novels. Actually, do you guys have any questions about stuff? Go ahead. Let's have you guys lead.
How did you get the idea for Little Robot?
Little Robot. Oh gosh. Little Robot is one of those ideas that I'm very happy with how the idea developed, because I feel like it developed in the best possible way, because it developed from short comics it developed from it developed from me just goofing off, and that's what I like about it. I was juggling a lot of freelance projects at the time. I was also, I think, working on a Zita book, and had all these balls in the air, and I felt like if one ball falls, everything falls apart, and I just took like 15, 20 minutes, and I sat down and I made a comic about it, and it was this little robot walking along, and then he's going morp, and then one little a screw or bolt or something falls off of him, and he turns around and he reaches down to pick it up, and he trembles and then just falls apart. And it was a 5-panel comic about how I felt that day, and that was that. And then I found myself going back to that same gag, and I could post it on the internet, and people were like, that's cute. And then I did another one, and then I did another one. And it was always like a 5-panel silent comic, and it was really like just a chance for me to kind of relax and just tell a goofy thing. It got a little bit existential. I started watercoloring them. They got really weird and goofy, and it was just, there were no rules, and it was really nice. And slowly and surely the little robot became a character, almost felt like on its own, and started whispering that there's a bigger story here. There's a bigger story here, and it went from there. And then when the little robot character kind of like married itself to this area where I live, like in the Shenandoah Valley, and I went out with my sketchbook and started thinking about the little robot underneath this rusted old train bridge that I love, and in these places. Then that story grew. So it grew up between the fooling around, and then the this like sense of actual place that I wanted to put it in. Anyway, that's Little Robot. But I was really happy because it came from that. It felt like I was drawing in class, and then something good came from it, because I had that tickling in the back of my mind, like I have real homework or serious work to do at this time. Anyway,
Where did Mighty Jack come from?
gosh, Mighty Jack came from. That story started in 2006. That story started at the same time. I was probably I can see myself sitting in that thing, and looking out my studio window was our scrappy little garden right outside our studio window. And I think just like looking out there and imagining that is the first, now I'm going to say first seeds of that story. But yeah, that's that. And then I remember, because I found notes from 2006 of that story, and then it needed to percolate for 10 years, I feel like. Some things do.
I think all stories.
Yeah.
So I've already, like my next series after Amulet, it's already...
You were just talking about that. It predates Amulet, right?
It predates Amulet's publication.
Okay.
But I came up with it right after I came up with the Amulet. I was in high school when I came up with the Amulet.
Okay.
So that's, it's a good 20-something years old. This next one is about 15 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I started working on it.
I'm kind of in the same boat, because like the story that I'm working on now is about the same, where I'm even stepping further back. So maybe we had all our best ideas way back when, and now we're just playing catch up. That's a very sad thing.
It's true, but I think that when they started out, they weren't good ideas.
Right, exactly. Good. Yeah. They needed.
That's why they're not out there.
They needed a little bit of wisdom
now,
to
it's like
crystallize.
It's like cheese.
Or cheese,
like
yeah.
Some mold has grown on it, but it's like the mold has now turned into these beautiful
Gotta
gardens.
let the bacteria in. Yeah. Very good. Well, can you answer a question? I'm going to draw.
Okay.
I'm going to draw a thing.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Anybody have a question for me, or maybe a question for Ben that maybe
he can just start answering.
I'll pretend to be Ben. No. Okay.
What was the idea for like the actual amulet? What was the idea for having a star or a necklace that has powers?
The idea for the amulet, I think to be honest, I think I just thought amulet sounded cool. Because I was really young when I started. It's like the previous thing that we were talking about. I was basically a teenager. And yeah, I just thought, that looks like a really nice title. And then eventually I realized, I gotta make that into some kind of a story thing. So sorry, that's not. So you don't want to meet the Wizard of Oz, you know? Because he's just going to be a salesman guy that works at a place.
your creativity and writing into it?
That's a really good question. How does being a fun? We
I've got to answer. Yeah, we could both answer.
I've only got 2 kids. Ben has like a busload.
I can't. There. I brought a school's worth.
But it's increased my confidence as a storyteller for kids. I was really nervous about writing for kids when I started because I didn't have kids. But now that I have kids, I'm like, yeah, they can handle anything, you know. But before, I was really like, oh, maybe I shouldn't write this, maybe I shouldn't write that, and so I had to really think back on what it was like to be a kid when I was writing Amulet 1. I thought back to when I was 5 or 6 years old, but now there is literally a 5 or 6 year old version of me in the house. And he or she will come tell me what's going on with my book that they don't like, you know. So it totally changes everything. But yeah, being a dad, I've also changed in that. Before I was worried about the craft of storytelling, like am I doing it well or not. And now there's sort of a more of a social responsibility aspect because I feel like now that I'm also realizing that I'm an educator as well. You know, it changes the way I have to think about the work because I know where it goes, and now that I know, I take a little bit more time to think about it.
I find it helpful from a purely practical standpoint in that I end up having a lot of little models of different sizes, which genuinely has been helpful. Like there are little bits in Little Robot where the girl's squatting down and poking at I think a turtle shell. And Julia was 6, and I was like, squat down and poke like this with the stick, and she did that, and I got the little kid squat. And Goblin is hiding under the bed. I think, it might have been Julia also. I was like, I'm going to pile like all these blankets and mattresses on top of you, and so I take these quick little reference photos. Drawing kids helps a lot. Helps catch gesture really well because they never sit still. And so if it makes you a really fast capturer of movement and gesture as an artist. I'm also watching them learn and grow and have their own adventures, which is incredibly helpful. And exactly like you said, they are sort of your first critical line of editorial help, right?
Yeah.
It's really good, like if you think something's funny and it falls flat, you're like, oh, that's just me. I thought that it's not a good joke.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff like that happens.
Yeah, kids are really honest, so that's great.
Yeah.
People wonder, like, is it difficult when you're writing for kids and you go out to an audience and you talk to them? I'm thinking, no, I look forward to it because they are editors in every audience. They will just go right ahead and tell me when it's not working. And
no filters,
I really
it's
appreciate
yeah,
it.
it's
good. In fact, Amulet 7 was changed by a question. A young, like 10-year-old reader posed when I went to Books of Wonder in New York, and she asked a question about the story, and I thought, you're right, I need to answer that question, and I scrapped 30 pages that I had already done for Amulet 7, and I redid it, and I made that book entirely about answering that question that she had, which was, what happens at the end of Amulet 5? It was a very simple question. I was like, you're right, I need to go back to that. So let's go right back, and I did it.
There it is. Wow. Any other questions? Making comics? Yep.
Did you know the amount of books that you were going to write for Amulet before you started?
Oh,
For Amulet? No.
No, definitely not. I had no idea it would be like this.
I don't get that.
I was just practicing. That's how I thought of Amulet.
Really?
It was supposed to be my quick practice run.
Okay.
And then it just turned into this big ball of energy.
Yeah.
And now I have to drive this ball of energy.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that happens for most often.
So when you guys were kids, preteen, were you writing? Were you drawing? How do you connect those activities to what you do today?
I was writing and drawing as far back as I can remember, and I was around. I mean, I was lucky. I was around stories a lot growing up, and also, my dad's an architect, and so he I just remember like when things were explained to me, it was usually, with pen and paper in hand. So no, it's like this, and he'd draw it out, and I'd be like, oh, I get it. So it seemed very explaining a concept through drawings was a very natural concept for me. And then my mom was an avid library goer, and so I remember going. They read a lot to me, but I also remember before I could read, being like a toddler, like wandering along the dark library shelves and the smell of the books. And so I think the first thing I loved about books was just the smell of the library. And then like when we visited the house that I grew up in one day, the nice family who lived there let us in, and they were taking down the wallpaper in this room that used to be my little sister's room. And I discovered that the reason they'd put up the wallpaper, or my parents had put up that wallpaper, was because I had drawn all over the walls. And they were Pac-Man ghosts. I had drawn Pac-Man ghosts on the walls. And so yeah, I think parts of it were there from the get-go, and then I don't know, riding my dirt bike down to the used bookshop and buying comics and reading them in a treehouse was an actual thing,
Yeah, I was trying to quit comics.
Oh yeah,
all throughout my life as a kid.
I've gone through phases where I was like, I'm going to be in and out of comics by this age.
I told my mom I was going to be a doctor.
Okay.
So I just thought that's what's going to happen.
I never had anything serious I thought I was going to do.
Well, I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, good.
And realized that's probably not going to work out. And then from there, I said, I don't want to sit at a desk all day. I just want to I want to get a camera and jump out of a plane. Like I wanted to go make movies, Yeah. And so I ended up going into live action film. That's why I studied film.
Oh,
and
cool.
I went
Okay.
into the film industry.
Right.
And I did all of that, and I realized, people in the film industry actually would, it'd be better. I could tell a story, and telling a story within the framework of the film industry is actually not the best. It's not the best place. It's like having to create like plans if you're an architect, like while you're on like the construction.
Yeah,
site,
it feels like a particular thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. So he's got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
How did you start making Zita?
How did I start making Zita? You remember when those first started coming out? Oh, actually, you don't remember the first Zita comics. The first Zita comics, very few people have ever seen. Lou Ferrigno signed the first Zita comic of mine, just because I ran into him at a comic, The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, I know,
Okay,
I know.
I just ran into him at the comics convention. I was like, because I had my original, like this. So the first Zita comic that I made was to impress a girl that I went to college with. And so the story goes, it worked.
Uh-huh.
And she married me, and now I have 5 kids.
And now Zita.
And now
Zita is an actual person.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. And that's another story too. But yeah. So the first Zita comics I made. So my wife's character, like she had done these little Zita comics, and I was like, I'm going to develop this into a thing and impress her. And it was so silly. It had a dinosaur in a cape called King Tyrannosaur. That was sort of a superhero, but really just a wild dinosaur that was eating people. Just really silly stuff. A lot of time travel. Had a long way to go. But then I did a webcomic, and actually the reason I have a daughter named Zita, and at the time, and I was really nervous about this because I had done the webcomic, and then I was like, I think I'm done with that, and then Zita came along, and all the names we picked out for this little girl, when she arrived, they were like, damn, that doesn't fit. Like this little baby did not seem to fit any of those names we picked. And one of us said, like, there's our Zita, and it kind of stuck. And I wasn't really planning on doing like a graphic novel or making a thing of it. And then I think then that I started getting those little nibbles, and people were like, hey, you should, we're interested in this, and that came along. And so for a while I was worried that Zita would, I don't know, have a funny relationship with the name sharing, but no. She's really cool.
Does it have anything to do with your travels in Europe?
It does, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, so in Anna's family, is from Italy, and the region that she's from has Saint Zita, is one of the kind of patronesses of the area, and she's always like got an apron full of bread. She was known for not anything like it's not a typical medieval saint. More of just a like really great person who baked fantastic bread and sometimes snuck out and gave it to the poor.
Oh.
We should give these drawings away, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I
How
think
do you do that?
Let's tear them out. And
I mean, how do
just,
you decide where it goes?
We gotta.
We ball them up and toss them out?
They would just toss them. Yeah, I don't know. How do you want to do this?
I don't know. This was your idea, man.
Oh, no, okay. Well, who wants the drawing? All right.
Yeah, let's see. There we
There's a
go.
lot. Okay, so then, gosh, how do we do this?
Is there a contest we could do?
Yeah, how do we do a contest here?
We could ask trivia.
Up for trivia? Yes.
I don't know.
There
What do
you
you
go.
think?
We'll do
What trivia do you know?
It has to relate to our book.
Okay. You mean are we going to ask book questions?
Sure.
Okay.
The story, your story, and
You want to
Amulet.
try? Okay. There is a character in Zeta 2. I hope this is okay. Okay, there's a character in Zeta 2. It's like has a big beard and a little pointy hat, but it's a real side character. Has like a pointy little gnome cap. Can anybody name that character? Yes. Maybe? Oh, yes. Ask me this question. Did I know what?
You know that sun has rings?
Do I couldn't understand your question.
You know that the sun actually has rings?
That the sun has rings? Rings of what? Do I know that? I don't think I know that.
I mean, there's
I don't know. I did not just win the drawing. I am disqualified from the trivia contest. Yes.
Is it Strong's boss?
No. That's his name is Topper. But no, there's a character with a pointy hat. Topper has like a top hat.
Isn't it like that creature that looks like a moth that lives in the pipes?
Oh yeah, no, those are two other characters. Yes. I might be doing too deep a cut.
All right.
Kazu, you do a question. Mine was too hard.
Question about Zita.
Or anything. I don't know. I don't know how we're giving these away.
Okay.
It could be about yours too.
How about for Amulet then? Here, I'll let you
Okay.
hold this one and
Okay.
you can think of a question.
Okay.
So, there's a character in the Amulet series that is named after. It was named by my son when he was 2. It was his first word, and I also kind of developed the character to be a little like my son. This character flies. Is a creature, little creature, and has big eyes. Who wants to make a guess? I saw that hand go first. You're right.
Boom. Well done. How about Madrigal's cat? Madrigal's cat? Yes. You got it.
Look at the name. I know the mouse's name.
Fair enough. Wait, is that fair enough, or should I do that? No. Yeah.
Does anyone know it?
Anybody know Madrigal's cat? Related to Mouse's cat?
Isn't the name like Angels?
No.
Or is it Kizzy?
No. It's probably only mentioned like one time. Yeah. Yes, perfect. Well done. Would you like to come up here and get this? Would that be okay? Is that okay? Because I just really like your outfit. Woo! Here is a drawing for you. I love your dress. That's fantastic. Wow. So that was the thing that happened. Wow.
That's so cute.
Okay.
Yeah. So also, as an addendum to the trivia question, I asked my son recently what. He knows the story of having named Dagno, and he said it was the all-purpose word that he used for everything. He would just point to things and say Dagno, Dagno.
Like Smurf.
What's that? Yeah. Well, and then recently he said no. He's like, Dad, no. He's like, Daddy, no. Like I was trying to say Daddy.
Oh.
Yeah. So he remembers that anyway.
That's
But,
cool.
So he helps me with my books.
Wow. Yes. Oh, you had a question before. You were going to ask. Yeah.
Yes.
Is the next book gonna be
Uh-oh.
Zita's friend and Zita and Jack and Lily?
Yeah, that's a possibility. But I can't. I think yes. That seems to be a thing that's going to happen. But I'm in the process of writing it. So as these things go,
Yeah.
I always feel so bad Because when you talk about the next book, if you're in the process of writing it, you're talking about a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, and also as a writer, a lot of times I feel like I'm doing my best work when I'm just following my characters on their journey. And so they sort of tell me the story.
Yeah.
You know, because if it doesn't feel right, it just doesn't feel right. And sometimes the story just isn't there. And I can't, so I don't really know what happens before I know. I actually have to send something to my publisher, though, to tell them that I'm going to do something. They ask me for a synopsis. So I pretty much throw that away when I go to work. But I created a story that sounds pretty good. I send it to Scholastic, and everyone's like, yay! And then
you do what you were going to do anyway. Right?
Yeah, and I just go and make a book,
Right.
and then they're like, this is nothing like the story, but we like it. This is great. So,
Yeah. Yes, but I don't think these guys have
two
gone.
questions right here. Yeah, go ahead, guys. What are your questions?
Okay. Do you know who the main character of book 8 in Amulet is going to be?
Oh, it's Emily. It's always Emily.
But she
Yes.
turned into a phoenix in book 7.
I just spoiled something. So,
Oh, man.
oh yeah, maybe it's Emily.
That's awesome. So that was the most charming moment
at
of
the
the
end
night.
of that book, I don't know. I mean, as a writer, I know that a lot of people are concerned for Emily, and she's the hero. I think if going into that book, it was how does this happen? How does she get out of this, right? And that's the question. That's what I'd like people to focus on, not so much whether, if, but how. And that's why it's so hard to write, because I want to show her, come out of this bad situation stronger than ever, and I want to show you that it's like how inspiring that can be.
Sorry.
Are you and Ben going to a book together?
But we've done lots of books
Yeah.
together. Yeah, we've done all the flight
Any
books
flight book
and
that you find is
Yeah.
a book we've done together.
pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah.
Good job. Yes.
Are there going to be any more cover stories?
Ooh.
Question for me.
Yeah.
Copper Stories, I have been doing new ones on my website, so you can actually see them right now. Just go to boltcity.com, they're up there. I just do them whenever I feel like if I see my friends online and they're feeling down, and sometimes
I'm gonna start telling you when I'm in a sad mood. now.
and then you'll get a Copper comic.
Oh, I did not know you could do
but
that.
Don't get sad because
No,
of it.
no,
Yeah.
no. I'm
You want
plenty
more
sad,
Copper
yeah.
comics, but no, that's what I did.
No, but it sounds. I didn't realize you had been posting new ones on the site, so I'm gonna.
I just saw
I've got a
that there were a
backlog of
lot of
stuff to
friends were
read.
bummed out, so I just thought,
Sweet.
hey, I'll just throw it out. They would throw it out there, and it just turned their day around. So I was like, all right, that's good. I'll put that out there I did 3, and then everyone seemed okay. So I went back to work and focused on my kids.
You are the very best. That's great. Yes.
How old were you when you started working on Zita and
So Zita had I feel like Zita had such a long evolution that it's hard to pin down, right? We could put it in those college days. So like when I was 22 or something like this.
How old are you now, then?
And how we're gonna
Well,
do
that
this.
way we can.
Oh yes, now I am 40.
Okay.
And so how old would I have been when I started doing the web comics, which I feel like is when Zita started to crystallize. And I can't remember, 20 or something.
Mid-20s. That's where
Mid-20s,
we met.
mid-20s,
Yeah,
yeah.
we met.
Mid-20s,
We're pretty
yeah.
much the same age. I'm 39.
Yeah.
And Amulet I started when I was 17, 18.
There it
Takes a
is.
while.
Yeah. Yes, you've been very patient.
2 questions. One of them is, for the Goblin series, a lot of the time I really just cannot tell what is going on. Because, it seems like there's kind of no real storyline. Also, where are their parents? Where are his parents?
Okay, so I guess the question's for me. But,
Yeah, no,
about Copper. But yeah, sometimes there's no storyline in Copper. That's true. I do that on purpose. I just wanted to. So my favorite book is a book by John Steinbeck called Cannery Row, and I read that in high school. And when I read that, it did not feel like a story so much as it felt like a place to visit. And then I saw Miyazaki's films, Hayao Miyazaki's movies, and I felt the same way about that. I feel like those stories don't really they don't end, they just happen. Mm-hmm. And then you can go and revisit it and see it all these different ways. And then so I end up watching all those movies over and over and over again. And so when I write my stories, I don't feel like I want to push anybody in any direction. I just want to create a space for them to just think and kind of enjoy the nice pictures and then, bring something to it themselves. And so that's why, and Copper especially. So that's kind of why it doesn't end. And why are there no parents? That is a good mystery. I actually have a backstory for the whole Copper universe. It's kind of a sad one, but I'll probably put it in a book someday. But it's actually pretty similar to Peanuts, to Charlie Brown's story.
It feels like there's Little Nemo in it though too.
Yeah, there's that, and Tintin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's got that feeling of the grand old tradition of the big newspaper comics. I don't know, Copper's good, special.
Yeah. So.
Could you, each of you, talk a little bit about how you do what you do? Like, where do you draw, and when do you draw, and how long do you draw, and what are the favorite things you use? And you have a special cookie that you have, or listen to some kind of music? Just like from a kid perspective, when you go and do your work, what do you do it? How do you do it? How long do you do it per day?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a little. So I have. I live in a big kind of rambly farmhouse, and then I have a little what we used to call the shed that I finished off into a little tiny office space that I work in. And I usually spend my mornings, when I'm producing a book, I still probably spend my mornings, I make a list, things I want to get done that day. I start every morning with a list. If I have any businessy stuff to do, if I have somebody I have to respond to, I'll do that. But then when I'm getting down to it, I will play usually movie scores for background music. And if I'm writing, I'll have to dedicate time, and I'll say I'm living in this, because it's hard. It's hard actually sometimes to buckle down and do that part of it, because there's always something you have to do that can pull you away from the part where you're actually making the thing. But so I've gotten to the point where I have to say okay, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to be planning out this story, just putting my mind in it, making sketches and stuff. It's a lot easier when it's page production, because on those days I've probably already gotten the book laid or penciled out or thumbnailed out, so I've got a rough sketch of the book. Oh gosh, I'm really scattershotting. So it goes like this. So for a graphic novel, it goes outline, which is a written thing with sketches, a sketchbook full of sketches to kind of get a visual feel for the book. Then I will thumbnail the book, which is doing the whole book. You write the whole book out in scribbly little pencils with a lot of Xing out and saying, no, it's this. And so that you end up with a really almost unreadable except to you version of the book. And then I look at all those thumbnail pages. Once I go through them with my editor, so some days I might have a long call with my editor, and we go through that whole thumbnail, and then I create the final pages, which is when I look at this scribbly little page, almost unintelligible, and I'll say okay, I want to make 4 pages today, 3 pages today, and those are the pages where I lay them out with my rulers, and I pencil it in and then ink it. And those are good days because you can measure your progress really well in pages. And keep your bottom in your chair and say, okay, this is the part where I'm creating the finished page art. And then there's there are days when the job is scanning all day long, and those are not the most fun days. It's like a scanning day. Scanning a book.
I always forget to put that in as a production process.
Oh, I always do it all in a chunk,
Yes,
and it's 2 days of bad times.
Scanning and cleaning up the scans actually takes longer than drawing the page for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because I draw fast, but
Yeah.
but all the production stuff, like lettering and cleaning
Yeah,
it up,
yeah.
and then flipping it over and then liquefying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just go through it and just show you how I make a comic page. Might as well. All right. So one of the cool things about being able to write and draw my stories is that when I have writer's block, I can draw to get myself out of it. And if I don't know what to draw, I just focus on writing. And so when I write my books, they don't come out in comic form most of the time. That's only when I'm about to go ahead and draw the pages. But when I write my stories, I will. What I'll do often is I'll just draw like a sketch of a couple characters. And they're going to talk, and then I'll just write all these lines, and I'll write dialogue like this. Somebody talking like that. Maybe he's talking to Leon. So I'll just draw character. And he's saying this, and he's saying that, and then I just write dialogue most of the time. Sometimes I need to just design, like let's say that they're at a bakery or something. I don't know. And then I just need to get some visual aids for what that's going to look like. Maybe this, and maybe Miss gets working at the bakery. Right, and so it's talking. So I get a sense of the scene, but then I also have the dialogue. I write dialogue without writing out who's saying what, because if I can't tell, then it's probably not good. You should be able to tell who's saying what just by reading the dialogue, and this is a way for me to test it. So if I go back and read what I had just written, if I can't tell who's saying what, it's me saying what. It's me trying to figure something out. And so then I go back and rewrite the dialogue. When I go from this to doing the pages, designing the pages later, and I'll just reference this page. Oh, that's why it's not. Because this is way up here.
Oh, you got it.
Kinda. That'll work, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
There you go. Ooh. Whoa. There.
And this is actually how I write my comics. I just go ahead and start filling up. Oh, this is fine, I guess. I actually wouldn't do a sequence like that. But sometimes, even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll actually just make boxes and just fill up the boxes. Just because I have to get something done. And I'll just, I'll just start drawing inside of there. Like we'll do the bakeries here or something. Leon comes inside the bakery and buys a piece of bread. There's some money exchanged. Yeah, and then I tell the story like that.
Oh boy. That's
This isn't working.
that's the end of drawing time, I feel.
Here, I'll put it right
Okay.
here.
Oh, no, no.
So,
It's never the end.
So that's kind of my the progression of the process of actually making the comics, and then like when this reads well, then I produce it. But as far as like my day to day, it's mostly just being a dad, and then whatever times I can find to get to work, I will. My wife is actually doing a series for Scholastic as well, a graphic novel series. So we just switch out parenting duties. We have an office that's near our kids' school, so we drop the kids off. These days, because she knows I'm like heavily under pressure to finish Amulet 8, she picks up the kids and I stay at the office, and I think I get my best work done between 3 and 6.
That seems about the same.
Right?
Yeah.
In the mornings, I actually know I'm not going to get very much work done, so I do my email.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'll watch a movie. I'll read a book. I start thinking of that as my input phase, and then just before dinner is the output phase. And that seems to work out pretty well. So.
And it feels very similar to Stephen King's, like,
Is that what it is?
yeah, if you want to be a writer, you would read 4 hours a day and write 4 hours a day.
Yeah, you can't
I mean-
make something out of nothing.
Exactly, yeah, right. So, yeah.
I just, both of you have strong female characters in your novels, and I was wondering what that arose from, especially did you thought of them before you were parents, or did you have strong female characters in your life?
I've been surrounded by strong female characters all my life. It's my thing now. I grew up with sisters, really, really cool sisters. And now I'm surrounded by really cool daughters. And so to me, like, just like in my visual periphery, I feel like that's like when I look for a character, I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. And it just, it wasn't really any kind of conscious choice on my part. I didn't have any like idea like, oh, I'm going to do this. It was just like, this is what I've been seeing. So, so it's good, and I think it's turned out well. I hope. But yeah, that's really disappointing.
I'm like Ben in that way. It's just what I know because I was raised by my mom and my grandma, and they spent the most time with me. My favorite professors, the ones who really pushed me, they were all women as well. And my wife is way stronger than I am. She's the rock of the family. I'm there I'm backup. You know.
Yeah, I'm giving Anna short shrift here.
Because
Zita the Space Girl is based on Anna and that strong sense of like.
Anna and Amy are just really tough too.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, I was just talking to her. It's amazing.
Yeah, I just go to work. I draw comics and try to make sure the family we can support ourselves. And I feel like. There's a character like me in all the books that people don't seem to pay attention to. And there's usually a guy that's backing up the strong female character. And so if there's a biographical element to it, it's usually that guy.
And I feel like secretly I'm in that opening scene of the first Zita book where there's the button. And the question is, do you push the button or don't push the button? I'm secretly Joseph. I'm the one that don't. I don't think we should. And she's like, no, we could do this. And that whole scene plays out like my, I feel like, life.
Yeah, we don't make ourselves the heroes so much. Like I guess I thought I was like Leon, but Amy says I'm Miskit.
Okay.
Or Kermit.
I can see it. How are we doing on? Just really quick. How are we doing on time? It seems like the store's closing.
The store closes. If
And-
anybody wants to buy anything, we can bring you up really quickly, but you can go on for as long as
Okay, because I want to leave time for signing and visiting, and I don't want to overstay our welcome.
And also, it's getting late.
So yeah, let's do.
We'll do 2 more questions.
Okay.
You were talking a little bit about Miyazaki and his films, and I've heard that you like to do Amulet film, and so does that make you feel like in your early film study days, like you're getting back to your roots, and that's kind of, are you having the animation for the program?
Am I going back into film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, does that feel like, because that's what you studied, correct?
It is what I studied, yeah.
So is there like sort of a sweet spot that you're going back to your roots, and how does that feel? And heading the animation piece?
Not really. I mean, I my last job, I was actually directing a movie at Disney. So I didn't get to finish it, but I was working in animation. I was in the film industry, and I moved up here to sort of get away from it because I knew that we would probably make the Amulet movie, and I didn't want to be so involved. I was trying not to be involved in the first several tries of the movie, so I could focus on the books and my family, because I had made a conscious decision to move away from it. But I guess I'm a nice guy. I don't know, but they always want my input, and I'm actually a producer on the new version that they're working on right now, and I'm an executive producer on the film. And I just wanted to focus on the books, actually. So I'm actually coming away from film to focus on comics. And maybe someday I'll go back to doing film, but that would have to come after my kids are probably in college. Because when you're on the set, I feel like you should dedicate yourself to the family that's on the set. And I don't want to have to choose between my family and that family. And so one of the reasons that I did do comics is so I can raise a family. And and I can always put them number one. So it's been great. So I just kind of revolve my schedule around life, not so much my ambitions. I don't really need to make a movie. It's a lot of work. I mean, if you've ever done it, you don't want to do it again unless you're like really good at it.
We're gonna do one last one, or should
Yeah,
we?
go ahead, yeah.
Okay, I feel like.
But you should answer that question too, because don't you have any film stuff or do you have ambitions to do animation?
Well, yeah. I mean, I am like, so there is the Zita and Jack have been optioned, and I'm doing some of the treatment work for Jack, and I don't know how much of that's going to turn, if that's going to turn into me doing the script or not. They're still kind of in the early phases, but it is exciting, and it is causing me to ask questions about how much involvement do I really want to have? How much do I like this? This side of things. But I also do have like friends who are filmmakers. Like they have a really small little production company, and they do a lot of video work and stuff. And we made a short little 3-minute movie together. And you know, there's no pressure on a little project like that. It was just like a fun thing. But it did give me this taste of that, and it was particularly like me directing it and my friend Colin filming it and us fighting the whole time. But really enjoyable fighting, like the kind where you're like, no, it should be this way, and you're like, because of this, and it was really great. It was a really good experience, the best antagonistic experience I've had, and it turned into a thing I liked, and it gave me that taste of like I would like to do something like that again, but I feel like I'm scared off of being too involved in a big production. You know, it's a different ball of wax. It's entirely, but I like the idea of creating the idea of film. I like the idea of that. Telling stories in that way. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, he didn't ask a question, right?
Right,
So
not
in the
yet,
back?
so.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do a trivia to give that paper away?
Last person to ask a question maybe gets it.
Well, I
Or
mean,
it's a-
he asked about it.
Yeah.
So I think he should get it. So
Yeah, and his last question. Whoa, there we go.
There is one.
But there is one more.
Thank you so much.
And so let's see. Trivia question. You guys want to do trivia question to get it?
Yeah.
Another one? Okay. Let's see. What's a good one? Okay, so it's for Amulet. What? Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see if I can remember my books. What is the name of Trellis's uncle? He's actually my favorite character in the books. Like, if I had to pick one, actually, that would be the character, aside from Emily, because Emily's the main character. But I really like this character. You know?
Isn't it Booker or something?
No. Luger is his brother. No? Nobody knows? Anybody want to guess? No? Okay, let's do a different question. It's Uncle Vernon. Uncle Vernon. And he's great. He's the librarian. He's a librarian, the elf librarian.
I remember that now, yeah.
Yeah, he's like the biggest hero in the book right now.
That's cool.
All the librarians, you'll notice, there's like all these people who archive information.
Oh, right, of
They're like
course.
the best people in this book, in the book series. Anyway, let's see. That's an easier one. What is the name of Enzo's airship?
The law.
That's close enough. Yep. It's the Luna Moth.
All right, so I guess that's it. You want to do one more, or?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
Over here. Let me
Get a sign. Get a sign.
Where did I put the pen?
Under the stool.
Oh, is it there? Okay.
There we go.
All right, so I guess we'll do some signing and
You guys.
and thank you.
Good for you guys.